Hi everyone, it's Tom with the LEC preview of the second week of the LEC Spring Split playoffs. Last week, Excel was eliminated, which means there are only 5 teams left. And this weekend, we are going to be playing 3 series again. 3 best of 5s, 2 in the lower bracket, 1 in the upper bracket. So it's very exciting. And I'm just going to go through them day by day. And for the final day, which we don't really know the exact matchup yet, it's Misfits versus either Vitality or G2. I will be considering both scenarios. So let's kick off with Vitality versus G2. And I'll actually start with G2 because I think they got kind of rolled last weekend. Even though they managed to get one victory, I think that Fnatic perfectly exposed the flaws of G2, and that is that they are pretty indecisive in what they want to do and go for Hail Mary plays to get back in the game, which then also fail. And what I do think G2's strength is their top side. I think even though people meme a lot on Jankos and maybe against Fnatic he had a bit of a shaky series or didn't really know how to adjust, and maybe that was just a team-wide thing where in best of fives the team was put into a new scenario and didn't really know how to navigate that. I think actually overall Jankos has been pretty good this spring split. I put him as my second best jungler of the LEC regular split in my official vote. So he is definitely still a top jungler. Broken Blade is obviously a hard carry player. Caps has had on and off games. I did an interview with him in Infant Globe, which you can find on my Twitter, a link to at least. And I spoke a bit about his performance and reflected on the series as well. The bot side of G2 is the big question, has always been the big question mark. How are they going to perform when they're really under pressure? And I think that they showed that, yeah, you just can't really play for them. And G2 tried to do that, funny enough, with they had the composition where they had Karma. It was the goal was, okay, keep Flacket alive. I do think they ended up winning that game, but overall, if I look at the entire series, this is more of like a curveball that they threw rather than a solid strategy. And I think that is something that is a bigger thing to figure out for this team in the long run. Now, if I look at Vitality, I think that of the 5 games against XL, they played one good game, which is the final game. I think they played calm, collected, and played to their win conditions well. As a team, they were very organized. And perhaps this is something that they now will be able to do from the get-go against teams when they play against it. Perhaps they will have that level of understanding with each other against G2 from game 1. But I'm very skeptical because they will be put into a new scenario as well, and there you have like an Avari and a Selfmade who did play very well against XL overall, and I think also in the regular split they did decently for the expectations. But I think that as a team they will need time to adjust again, and that's where maybe their veteranship comes into play, and maybe they will be able to come together and topple G2. But I'm quite skeptical actually. What I will say is that this is, in my opinion, one of the bigger hurdles for Vitality in the lower bracket run. Obviously, finishing in 6th place in the regular split was a big disappointment. And by beating Excel, they're now in a top 5 position. I still think something I've said from the beginning, anything but a top 2 for them and Fnatic is a disappointing finish. So I think that for them, G2, if they manage to beat this and then go on to face Misfits, they will be in a pretty decent position actually. But I'm very skeptical. Overall, I think in my prediction, I said it's going to be a 3-1 for G2, and I plotted out the entire bracket according to how it was going to go. I think I said it was a 3-1. By the way, last weekend I was 1 game off, unfortunately. I did expect... I don't know actually which one exactly it was. Maybe it was the Vitality XL one. Oh no, the Fnatic G2. I expected it to be a 3-2, but it was a 3-1. But anyway, yeah, I think that this is now, I would say it's going to be a 3-2 maybe for G2, but I do think that the longer the series goes also plays an advantage to Vitality, who definitely, as we saw, needed a time to find their footing in the series. I still think G2 is overall favored, only a little bit though, because of how they've been performing in the regular split and their team cohesion. And I think that is something Vitality is still severely lacking. But we'll see. I think especially in the bot side is a place where Vitality can find an edge here, because we did see Carty step up more in the series against Excel, and if he's able to repeat that, then I definitely think that Vitality has a clear window to win. And also, we have to mention it's Perks versus Caps, which is very exciting, obviously. Very hype matchup between these two, the old rivals, then old teammates, and now rivals again. Um, yeah, I think this guy is just, these intangibles that makes the players on his roster want to play better. Um, I think that is something not to be underestimated. But if I look at the teams overall, I would still give, as I said, G2 the advantage. And then we go to Rogue versus Fnatic. Rogue, very dominant series against Misfits. Had one troll game with Kaiser mid, where they also fumbled a bit. But I do think that they face no opposition against Misfits. So it's very hard for me to gauge how good this Rogue lineup is in best of fives at this point, because it was quite a stomp. Yeah, they just play clean. I don't have anything to add really. I want to see if they are able to actually make versatility work in their composition. We did see in the first game, obviously, a Rumble top from Odo Omne, which is apparently, this is before my time, was like an OG thing for him. But that is something that I like seeing. I wonder though if they are going to be able to do something like that against a Fnatic who, in my opinion, as a team, play the most solid League of Legends at the moment, and individual skill also they're very high. Highlights for this is obviously once again the mid lane, where we have Larsen and Humanoid, the two best mid lanes in the LEC at the moment. What they're going to be able to do. Fnatic, as I discussed a bit with the series against G2, also didn't really have a lot of trouble dealing with G2, but it felt different. It felt that Fnatic at least had to do something, whereas Rogue didn't really have to do anything. I think Rogue just could play textbook League of Legends, and Fnatic had to adapt a bit more to what G2 was doing. So I think overall, I would say that Fnatic had to show a bit more of the strategies, and maybe this is something Rogue can capitalize on. But I will say that Rogue, it's still lacking that spice for me in terms of what they do. It's clean and it's good what they do, but are they going to be able to be clutch? And I think that is something that they might struggle with against Fnatic, who will meet them equally, if not more, in the force that they bring on the Rift. So overall, if I go for the predictions, I do think Fnatic will win this. I do think Fnatic will win this 3-1, actually, because I do think that even though the games might be close, that they're gonna have that factor, which in large part is from a player like Humanoid, who, as many people have said now about him, he's really the guy who tells the team where to be and how to behave. He's that big brain in the team to move all the chess pieces around. And then you have the individual players like a Hillesang and an Upset, who are going to be able to pull off the clutch plays and go for this. I think the biggest weakness for Fnatic at this point is Razork in the jungle. And I think that Malrang will be able to do a lot through punishing Razork, because Malrang doesn't have just one style, what people seem to believe for some reason. He actually, in what he does, is very clever, and he adapts very well to what the opponent knows and what the opponent does. So I do think that Razork will have a tough time against Malrang, but I think that's about the only place where I do see Rogue having a considerable advantage heading into this matchup, which might lead to a one-game victory if they get that ball rolling very early. But overall, I do think Fnatic is going to be able to beat Rogue, which is an exciting prospect for Fnatic to be back in a final, back-to-back finals. Obviously, last summer split, they finished in second place. Before that, they finished in fifth place. So upward trend for them, and maybe they have a real shot at claiming the title again for the first time since 2018. For Rogue, it would be another final after last year's spring, which ended disastrously. But I think winning against Fnatic would be a big motivator for them and a big confidence boost as well, if they are able to withstand that force. And then on Sunday, we either have Misfits versus Vitality, or we have Misfits versus G2. Now, I've said already that Misfits got rolled, and if I look at what Misfits did last week, it wasn't very good. They during the spring split heavily relied on Veteo popping off. There's like 5-6 games where he absolutely carried them, which maybe the enemy could have won if he hadn't. Then there's Neon, who I think actually in this series was the Misfits' best player because he was able to at least do something back against Rogue, I guess. Hirit, Mersa, and Schlatan had a rough series, especially Schlatan and Mersa seem to suffer from rookie nerves, which is fine. It's understandable. It happens. But in the end, obviously, the result counts, right? I've always been very lenient with rookies because after a first split, they develop a lot. Heading into the second split, Viteo was a rookie last year, had an spring split with like his memorable Zoe game, but after that he dropped off. Summer split was a bit more stable, and now he's one of the best mid laners, right? So give them a bit of leniency there, cut them some slack. But yeah, I mean, in this series, whichever they're gonna face, let's start with Vitality first. Let's say they face Vitality. You have veterans across the board who will be able to deal better with pressure than you are, will be able to punish any mistake that you make, even though you can say Vitality as a team is not as good, not as in sync as other teams in the LEC playoffs, and maybe like a 1 or 2 teams outside of the playoffs in terms of cohesion and being on the same page all the time. These veterans are going to be able to punish the mistakes that you make. You have Alfaro in the top lane, who is maybe the best top laner in the West. If you look at the laning phase especially, although his regular split was very quiet, in my opinion, he still definitely has the potential, and he will punish the mistakes that you make, and kind of shut that down. Then you have Selfmade, who is sometimes maybe a bit over enthusiastic, but I think against a team like Misfits, where rookies might have nerves, something like that might be in your advantage because you could kind of crush that spirit by just going in relentlessly and punching them. Even if you get that first kill just once, you have a mental edge there. In the mid lane, we have Viteo and Perks. Even though Perks won the rematch against Misfits, I think overall, Viteo and Perks are pretty evenly matched at this point, where I do think Viteo has that carry potential. Perks is more of the big brain player. But in bot lane, we have Neon and Mersa. And even though Vitality's bot lane during the regular split wasn't very good, I think Karsi actually improved a bit during the series versus Excel. I think he played better there. And I have a hard time seeing Misfits winning considerably through any of these lanes, or the jungle. So I think that Vitality has a very big edge if they face against Misfits, which would mean that they would advance to the lower bracket semifinals and finish top 3, which all of a sudden is pretty reasonable and pretty impressive, actually, considering where they started the playoffs run. But yeah, I think if it's gonna be Vitality Misfits, I might even say it's gonna be a 3-0 for Vitality, just because of the momentum that they have, especially after possibly, well, they'd have to have defeated G2. Then I think that's such a big boost for them, and it's gonna be such a fear factor for Misfits. But let's consider, for example, we get G2 versus Misfits. As I said, I think G2 might struggle a bit more with Misfits because they don't have that individual punish power, especially in the bot lane. I think Neon could do very well against a Flaka Targamas bot lane, together with Mersa, even if Mersa had a rough series last week against Rogue. I do think that is something that Misfits might be able to strike back on, but yeah. Overall, I would still give it to G2. Probably in a 3-1, there could be one game where Viteo absolutely pops off. And we've seen, obviously, in this split already that both of these teams, when they play against each other, have thrown. G2 had, like, what was it? The 13.5k gold lead, most memorably in the last time they faced. And then threw, and Veteo popped off on Akali and won in the game. But actually, people seem to forget that the game before that was also almost thrown by G2, but then they pulled it back barely with an incredible base defense from Broken Blade and Flucket, and then actually managed to finish the game there. So I think there's definitely going to be fireworks when these two meet. And yeah, I still think that G2 will win it. I just don't see Misfits performing at a good level at the moment. Now, again, I don't really blame them for that because they have a lot of rookies, and I think they definitely overperformed in best of ones, which are more volatile, but they're just going to get exposed on what they're lacking in their team here in the best of fives. And again, it might seem a bit of copium, but I definitely think it's fine. As long as in summer you're able to fix what was exposed during the spring split, right? And we've seen teams do that before. So those are my predictions for the final weekend. Well, not the final weekend, but the second weekend, the penultimate weekend of the LEC Spring Split playoffs. Let me know in the comments below what you think. If you like this comment, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll be once again in the LEC studio the entire weekend, so I'll be doing interviews on site. And I'll post a video interview if I get one, hopefully. If it gets approved, I'll be posting one on this channel. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more content.